Yeah, hi, my name's Paul Cross. I'm a senior lecturer in the environment, and today I'm at this amazing site, nature reserve, known as Newborough. Now, the reason I'm here is not because it's these diverse plants and insects all here, but it's the centre point of what has been a massive conservation controversy that's been running for about 20 years now. So, why is this important? Well, it's a triple site, a site of special scientific interest, a national nature reserve, and the reason it has that designation is because it's got these watery areas here are known as dune slacks, and they are flooded normally during the winter, and they're bone dry in the summer, and they are a wildlife reserve for some really nationally rare flowers, flowering plants. So, as I said, these are important features of the sand dune system, these flat areas that you get at the base of the dune. Because when they dry out, there are all these rare plants that can thrive in this environment. Now, this water here and the water level is key for understanding what the controversy regarding Newborough Forest, because this water table needs to be maintained at a fairly high level. And the reason it needs to be maintained at that high level is that the plants that grow there don't have this deep root system. They need water not far from the surface. But about 60 years ago, 70 years ago, the Forestry Commission planted a load of trees over the other side which take up half of this sand dune system. And the fear was that those trees were actually sucking up, drinking so much water that the water table here was going down and was at a level that was going to start to endanger or threaten the rare plants that we find here. And because this is such a European-wide rare habitat type sand dune systems, there are a few along the west coast of the UK, but at a European scale they're few and far between. Many of them have been built on and developed and what have you. The European Union, when we were members of the European Union, decided that this was a habitat type that needed special priority conservation, and what was the Countryside Council for Wales at the time signed up to this, as did all the other partner countries, that they would maintain this habitat type in good condition. And for that to happen, you need to keep this water level at the right level. Okay, so we'll go and have a look at the forest in a moment, and I'll try to demonstrate to you why that was such a problem that they planted up half of this site. Right, so now standing on top of quite a large fixed sand dune, and behind me you've got the Fleam Peninsula. You can just make out maybe it's a bit vague, but over to the right here is the other half of Newborough, and that's the Newborough Forest bit, and what you can see it's been planted up with lots of pine trees, a variety of species of pine trees, but 12 square kilometres of that. And what it's been planted into is that land that in 1947 was considered commercially completely useless. You can't plough it. There's no other sort of financial economic benefit to be derived from that land. So they planted it up with trees with a view to harvesting those after a 40 or 50 year cycle. Now, it's all well and good. We all want trees, and the government have got this campaign going at the moment where we're going to plant billions of trees across the UK. But we do need to be careful as conservationists to consider the consequences of just random planting. So here was an area that was planted up and justified because it was otherwise economically valueless. Now hopefully you've got an idea of how rich in terms of biodiversity this part of the Warren is. And that part of the forest Warren area could be equally rich in terms of biodiversity, in terms of solitary bees, moths such as archer's dart, the sand dart, all typical of sand dune systems. There is nothing particularly specialist about that area there. You find pine trees anywhere, and then none of them are necessarily indigenous species anyway, so there's not necessarily a plantation of Scots pine. It's Corsican pine and all sorts. Anyway, that was planted up on this sand dune system, so that biodiversity was lost because of that. And so when CCW was under pressure to rectify the problem, because they're being judged by the European Union to maintain the whole sand dune system in good condition, that is obviously not good condition. So it was proposed by the conservationists at the time that they would clear fell much of that forest. Now the problem with that is that there's another species involved that we're not good at managing, Homo sapiens. And the Homo sapiens that live over there and come here on holiday to ride their bicycles, teach their kids to ride bikes on forest rides, were naturally outraged at this idea that you could go in there and destroy what is a fantastic dog walking, mountain bike riding, walking, picnicking site that people have visited and enjoyed for many, many years. And we as conservationists in the 1970s, 80s, 90s and today are constantly telling the public we need to plant trees. And so the public were rather confused that here are conservationists suddenly saying, no, we need to cut it all down. And the reason we need to cut it all down is so that we can get rare plants in these slacks, which the general public generally never get to see and wouldn't necessarily be able to identify anyway, in exchange for their leisure activities there. So the local community, and then they drew in members from elsewhere, formed a campaign committee which was so successful that the Countryside Council for Wales was obliged to stop their clear felling programme and were then fined annually by the European Union for not meeting the promise that they had given the European Union of maintaining this sand dune system in good condition. Right, so we've made our way out of the dune system. Come here, Cooks. This is my dog, by the way. And we're standing by a typical forest ride where people come for leisure activity. They're lovely walks. There's a huge circuit. You can do like 12, 15 kilometres through this woodland and or the dune system here. The issue isn't about that, okay? The issue is that we need to carefully consider what we're going to do with our tree planting in the future, because your grandchildren are the ones who are going to inherit the consequences of our decisions today. Let's make the right decision in terms of carbon sequestration, a greater diversity of trees, all planted in the right place. This is not the right place. Now, if you want to come and see this for yourself and determine how truthful my story is here, it's only about 15 kilometres away. It's a bus ride. There are regular buses. That part behind the person filming this is Newborough Warren. This is Newborough Forest, and you can do both. It's great.